Diabetes, also known as diabetes mellitus, occurs when the body is unable to make proper use of glucose, its main energy source. As a result, the level of glucose in the blood becomes too high, which is also called hyperglycemia. So, we also say that, in the simplest terms, diabetes mellitus, commonly referred to as just diabetes, is a blood sugar disease. A disease in which the body either cannot produce or sometimes it cannot properly utilize insulin. Insulin, a very important part. Insulin is a hormone that is needed to convert sugar, starches and other food into energy needed for daily life. Because diabetics have a problem with insulin, their bodies can't use glucose, blood sugar, for energy, which results in elevated blood glucose levels, hyperglycemia, and the eventual urination of sugar out of their bodies. As a result, diabetics can literally starve themselves to death. Some examples from old times. 1. Polyuric diseases have been described for over 3,500 years. The name diabetes comes from the Greek word for a siphon. The sweet taste of diabetic urine was recognized at the beginning of the first millennium, but the adjective mellitus, honeyed, was only added by Rollo in the late 18th century. 2. The sugar in diabetic urine was identified as glucose by Chevreul in 1815. In the 1840s, Bernard showed that glucose was normally present in blood, and showed that it was stored in the liver, as glycogen, for secretion into the bloodstream during fasting. 3. The primary sequence of insulin was reported in 1955 by Sanger and the three-dimensional structure by Hodgkin in 1969. Proinsulin was discovered by Steiner in 1967, and the sequence of the human insulin gene by Bell in 1980. Yalow and Burson invented the radioimmunoassay for insulin in 1956. The presence of insulin receptors was deduced in 1971 by Freychet, and the receptor protein was isolated in 1972 by Kuelter-Rocasis. 4. The various types of diabetic retinopathy were described in the second half of the 19th century as were the symptoms of neuropathy. Albuminuria was noted as a common abnormality in patients with diabetes in the 19th century, and a unique type of kidney disease was described in 1936 by Kimmelstein Wilson. The concept of a specific diabetic angiopathy was developed by Lundbeck in the early 1950s. Milestones in insulin pharmacology have included the invention of delayed action preparations in the 1930s and 1940s, synthetic human insulin in 1979, and in the 1990s novel insulin analogs by recombinant DNA technology.